So we're good, we're going. Welcome to the Climate Network, our last session of the year. And today we're going to be talking about plastic. We've got Dr. Maggy Fostier and Ruth Grady talking about the 6R protocol. And then we've also got Lydia Wunderley from the Plastic Shed to talk to us. And hopefully there'll be time for discussion at the end as well, but we'll see how we go. If you aren't already aware of what the Climate Network does, I'll just do a little spiel and then I'll pass it over to speakers. So we are here basically to provide a platform for people to connect across the uni and beyond, so that we're not all siloed away doing our own things, and we can come together and multiply what we do. And so this is one of the things we do. We have monthly Thursday talks and discussions, and then we also have a mailing list which has a whole lot of everything that's going on at the moment at the university, and again further afield as well. So if you're not signed up to that, we'll put a link to our website and you can go and sign up there in the chat. Great. So I'll pass on to you, Maggy and Ruth, if that's okay.
Yeah, and just Lydia is with us on the 6R aspect.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we'll have someone else with the Plastic Shed. Okay, I'll share my screen for a short presentation. Okay, can you all see that?
Yeah.
Okay, right. So thank you very much for coming here. It's always a pleasure to talk about this project. That's kind of the nice part of the work, I think. Back in 2019, so Ruth and I, we are senior lecturers in the School of Biological Sciences, and we run loads of practicals for very, very large cohorts, you know, typically 650 students, for example. So the students became concerned, we became concerned by the amount of plastic that was thrown away after each practical, especially as we knew that, did it really matter? Could we do it something differently? So we wanted to do something differently, and we managed to secure some funding from our faculty to try to integrate sustainability in the curriculum, so that fitted perfectly with what we wanted to do. We gathered a very large team. I think we've worked with about 30 people between staff, technical staff, and also undergraduate students and postgraduate students. And we developed, after thinking things through, we developed the 6R protocol. It's not particularly original. It actually, in my mind at that time, it came from the 3R protocol to reduce animal use in the lab. I now know that loads of R's are used in recycling and so on. But so that's the 6R protocol. That's what we came up with. We have review first, then reduce, reuse and refill, possibly replace the material by something more sustainable, and then recycle last, which is very limited in the lab, what we can do right now. And then the undergrads came with nice logos. So that's our logo for the research labs. So Ruth and I worked on the practicals aspect. Since then, things have evolved a tiny bit more. We have now, Ruth will present that later, but we are now also developing final year projects in our school, and we have started to launch a 6R champion undergraduate volunteering scheme. Lydia, she will talk later, but Lydia is now heading the research lab part of this project, because both Ruth and I are not research active, so we needed someone far more knowledgeable as to what was going on. So she started a year after. And the 6R protocol, due to COVID, we were quite limited with what we could do in the practical classes. So we had a bit of time to think of how to expand it differently. And with the help of two graduate students, we developed the 6R for campus. That's a nice little campus hat here. And the 6R for home. There. We won also a Making a Difference award in 2020. And we were finalists for Green Gown, but we didn't win. So, I mean, I'm sure we know we are preaching to the converted here. So, but basically, plastic pollution is a problem. Plastic in itself, has very many useful purposes, and there shouldn't be a full war on plastic. Clearly, we are all saving lives now using plastic in medical settings. It prevents loads of food waste. But what remains the problem is the management of the end of life, which was not particularly planned with that product. So we need to manage plastic more sustainably, on top of obviously perhaps design better plastic. University of Manchester has pledged to reduce avoidable single-use plastic by 2022. That's in a month's time. We were not too sure, I think, what the deadline really is, if it's end of the year or start of the year. Then obviously something can be done about it. I know it's still at our scale, but we certainly have proven we can do something about it in the lab, and incidentally it saves money, and that's quite a good incentive for labs, certainly, but also on personal level it can save money. Next slide. So here is the protocol that we came up with for the labs. So we have two aspects in the protocol. We have a poster, which is very generic, more or less prompt questions, what you should think about when you try to apply the 6R protocol to your practice. And then we have a QR code which links to a fuller protocol full of examples, which is, we call it the standard operating procedure. And this is a Google Doc with the aim to evolve it. We realize this is obviously work in progress all the time. And the SOP contains many examples, but also a quantification template at the end. And because it was initially designed for practicals, we also said how you may want to present it to the students, give you access to the logo and so on. So it's quite a full-on, full how to use protocol. But if we go through the poster, so in the review, you should review your procurement. You should see how you share material and tech stock. You should also review your protocols. Are all the steps needed? Could you use perhaps a better machine or protocol to reduce plastic? In the lab, the layout was certainly very important, but you can imagine in research lab, this is true too, and how you share or organize your lab may make some savings. So really review what you're doing, your practices, and then reduce and replace. So you're all familiar with this idea, but in the lab, it may mean, do you need to order that whole kit? Could you create some reagents in the lab? Could you use that? There's more and more equipment and products which say that they are saving plastic. Could we use them instead? There's often talk about downsizing the plastic containers that you are using, for example. Do you then need all these samples, dilutions? Could you share more and potentially consider replacing with alternatives? So for practical classes, certainly that became, I think, a good possibility because we reuse things so much. But after a talk with Michael Shavers, I realized that, the alternatives may not be very sustainable. So we certainly say to check the sustainability of them, and it needs to reuse it quite a lot for it to be a good option. We try to reuse and refill things as much as we can. That's something really scientists need to think about. Obviously, it depends on your research, but it's something you can do, and certainly in our practical classes, we can do a lot of reusing and refilling. Recycling, we are a bit stuck in the lab. I think currently mostly what we can do, Lydia is the chief on that, but it's packaging really. Any packaging, can we work through this? Then we also have to think of how we dispose of our plastic anyway. Is it contaminated, decontaminated? There is a cost, an additional cost when it is contaminated. So you have to be careful where you put things. And certainly we are trying to see whether we could recycle more. In 12 practicals that were reviewed before COVID, due to the very large number of students we have, we managed to save 37,000 items of plastics per year. And that would lead to £3,000 per year of savings. So it was really like a low-hanging fruit. We could do something about it. I'm going to hand on to Ruth. Oh, Ruth.
It's okay. I was supposed to talk about this slide, but hey, well, one thing that I think is really important that me and Maggie found was it's the review side of the protocol is really important, because especially in teaching laboratory classes and also in research, it's very easy that protocols get handed down and you do experiments in a certain way because that's what other people did. And so taking that time out and looking through and thinking, do we need to do this 3 times? Do we need to have each student having 3 repetitions? Could we each student just do 2 repetitions and then pool data amongst the class? Because we don't want to, get in the way of their learning, or we don't want to reduce their lab experience. But are we just needlessly using plastic where actually, we don't have to do that? And we've always had a feeling in undergraduate science that we want to replicate what goes on in a research lab, because that's what we're training people to do. But we've decided actually now that we need them to have the skills, but actually we need to build in sustainability to our undergraduate practicals. And we need to think in a research lab where this has to be sterile or this has to be single use because of infection control. It's a no-brainer that, we would possibly use more things that are single-use plastics. But in the teaching labs, we can build that into our curriculum to say, we have made a stand here and we are not going to use extra plastic that we don't have to. And we can actually replicate the skills with other things that we're doing. And we've made a point of doing that now, haven't we, Maggie? We've moved to that idea of the sustainability is really, really important.
Yeah, and
and the 37,000 pieces of plastic came from very, very simple things like we'll just give the students 3 tips rather than 4, or we'll fill up the bottles in between rather than buying a whole kit that has lots of extra bits in that we don't need. So we've just really reviewed what we're doing, and we've managed to make savings because we've got 650 students in the laboratories.
Yeah, and we do many repeats, don't we? So often nowadays, especially in year 1, we just wash.
Yep.
We just wash the equipment at the end, and the next group is using the washed equipment, and that saves so much waste because the results don't really matter in most practicals. So why having to use a new piece of plastic? And the students really understand, and they are with us on this.
They're very engaged with this, and this idea that we can build into the practicals a clean up time as well, so that the students can put things in soak, or the students can reset, the layout, so that we're not having to use fresh all the time. And I think that's really important that the students buy into that and realise, we can all do our bit to save plastic while still learning really good science. And we're hoping that they will take that into the research labs as well when they get into research and doing their PhDs, to realise actually we can look at protocols and see, can we do things slightly more, in a slightly different way, and not just use an inherited protocol, because that's how everybody always used to do it. Oh, and the other thing about the glass as well. So we have got glassware in that we've always had in. We used to use glass for everything. And then, of course, glass became untrendy and we use plastics. And we've actually got cupboards and cupboards full of glass. So we're able to use some of the glass that we used to use before. So we're not necessarily buying in new things all the time for some of our practical classes, which I think is really, really useful. Sorry, Maggie, back to you.
No, that's okay. Trying to move the next slide. Okay, so here is the protocol for home and campus. Similar concept. I won't spend as much time on it. I mean, clearly, this one is adapted to Manchester. So when in the full protocol, when we decide, we show the recycling aspect is really just based on what's happening locally in Manchester. I've been trying to update it quite a lot with all the supermarket schemes as well, which have all changed a lot this summer. The refill, that was a nice thing that was done by your graduate. She had managed to work out an app with a map of the campus with all the points of recycling and where you can refill your bottle of water, for example. So, after that, it's very generic as a protocol, but we try to put a lot of tips in the full soap. And this is where I haven't had Plastic Shed yet, but I'm hoping that after this seminar, I might include things that they are doing. I'm trying to update it as often as I can, but it's about every 2 months or so. We had some volunteers who were interested in reducing their plastic, and they tried it for a week. And overall, they saved between 5 and 45 items of plastics a week, mostly by not having takeaways anymore. I mean, I think one person has a radical change of life that week, to be honest. And also they saved money, and they recycled on top of their normal recycling, they recycle between 1 and 10 extra items a week. And they felt at that point that those actions could be sustained. So that was quite interesting, that they were not already saving everything they could. They were interested and wanted to do something, and the protocol helped them save more. Right? Who's this one? Is that me?
Yes, yeah.
Is that me? Okay, sorry. So now, what were the goals that we set ourselves in 2019 when we started? Where we wanted all our practicals in our faculties to be reviewed with 6R, and we had the support of our head of school and so on, but then COVID happened, to be honest. So in reds are the things where we haven't made much progress at all. The five staff that have been involved and reviewed their practical keep on doing so. We've actually also had to redesign some practicals, and now they've been redesigned with 6R in mind. However, you know, for the other staff, they just also overworked and things are changing. And anyway, life is going in the way there at the moment, which reduces what we can do. I'm kind of hoping eventually to train some postgraduate students to also help and support lecturers to do that part of the work, really. One where we have made a bit more progress was the dissemination of the 6R practical protocol inside the University of Manchester and outside. So inside, we've now really working with FSC, another faculty, and they are really on board, and they also think that actually the simplest way to start is via the practicals. They're just kind of the low-hanging fruits, the practicals. We made a short publication, which was actually surprisingly, we've had quite a few returns on this one. Then we tried to have another one where we were advocating to start by practicals, but this one at the moment got nowhere. And we've managed via LEAF as well, which is the UK-wide laboratory efficiency assessment framework. We think that we can start thinking of collaboration. We already have contacted a few people, but this is a work in progress here. Then the green thing that has moved a lot on was to this idea we've always been about sustainability in the curriculum, so we wanted to involve students in that part. So we want to get students to develop and promote the 6R either in the lab, but also on campus or other environments. So we now have this small pilot that started on in September this year, where students can volunteer, I think it's 12 hours a semester, to basically adopt the protocol and then do something to promote it and review impact. We now have a project, Ruth is going to talk about it in the next slide. We are part of the 50,000 actions. So that's 10,000, I don't know if you know that, 10,000 action used to be for staff only and now has moved on to the student body as well. So that's 50,000 in total. And there is an aim to make a bigger project, more full year long student volunteering project, but on sustainability in general, and 6R could be part of this. We also want to train, that's going to set a pilot next semester. We really want to train our postgraduate students in 6R so that they can start thinking of this practice in their lab, but also perhaps then they can help lecturers with the practical review. So there's quite a lot to do here. And this is good progress is really being made on this. Ruth, you're going to talk next. This time I know it's you.
Yes, so we've piloted this year a new final year undergraduate project for offered to all our undergraduate students. Now, all of them normally do a lab project. You'll probably be quite used to having undergraduate students in the lab, but we have other kinds of project too. And so this year we've got the environmental sustainability projects. And the idea is the students will come in and do write some bioscience about something in the biology curriculum. And then they're going to do something next semester to take any of our environmental projects forward, or anything they come up with. So one of them could be is to sort of test decontamination protocols in a laboratory. You know, if you're working on a PhD now and you're doing your own research, you may be thinking, well, actually, I'd really like to try out, how can we reuse these bottles that we get in with this kit? Can we reuse them for something else? Can we recycle them? Can we use different procurement? Can we use a different company? But you haven't really got time to actually investigate what's out there. So we're going to use environmental sustainability project students, like almost like as consultants. So they could come into a lab and have a look, have a chat with the PhD students, have a chat with the technicians and any other stakeholders, and say, you know, have you got something in your lab that you think may be a problem, and could they come up with some kind of solution? It could be about helping the lab get the LEAF award. So this is the environment assessment framework thing for laboratories. So this is a bronze, silver and gold award, and there are various different criteria that people need to hit in the lab to get the award. Some of them are particularly about plastics, some of them are about energy usage in general. So again, the consultant could come in and make some suggestions there and offer advice and gather information so that the laboratory can go in that direction. I've got one student that is going to be doing an environmental audit of our undergraduate field trips. You know, we send students to different countries and to different places, and we've never actually looked at, you know, what the impact on the environment is of sending 22 students on a plane somewhere, or what they're actually doing and what the equipment we're taking out there and what we're leaving behind. So doing some kind of environmental audit so we can tell our undergraduate students we have checked to see what we're doing, and then students can make a choice as to which you know, field trip they go on, and maybe one of their considerations may be the impact it's having on the environment. So these are work in progress. We've only started them this year with 4 students. We're hoping to go a bit more wholesale next year, but it's a really good way of getting undergraduate students thinking about sustainability in all sorts of different directions. So we're always on the lookout for ideas for projects as well. So if people are here are working in labs and they're thinking, oh, actually, it would be quite nice to have a student for 8 weeks to work on something, then please do feed us back some ideas and we'll try and recruit students to do it for you or alongside you if it's something you're interested in doing. So they're projects this year.
Those were all the goals for kind of the education aspect, practical classes and education. Lydia, I can't remember. Are you okay to take on this one, or do you just want to do the next one?
I've not seen this one.
Okay,
in
so
enough detail, I think. Thanks.
So those were the goals we had set then for the research part. That was actually before Lydia came on board. So we wanted to develop the equivalent SOP or 6R, but more research specific. So this is where Lydia comes in. She started, she's within one particular division of our school now and recruited a team of 13 champions. But the whole idea now, we are working on expanding this to the faculty. We wanted to integrate 6R with that LEAF framework. Perhaps for those of you who are not in the lab, that kind of replaces what used to be Green Impact. It's far more laboratory oriented. So we had an intern with Ruth this summer, and she mapped out how 6R fitted within LEAF, so the plastic parts of LEAF in terms of sustainability. And we've identified the resources that could be developed to help users basically accomplish those steps. So this is work in progress. The other work in progress was to develop a communication strategy and resources to incentivize staff to adopt 6R or LEAF and ensure good practice and compliance. So again, here this is things we are working on with Lydia. So we are all now looking at LEAF and 6R a bit together, to be honest. So this is one of Lydia's team mission. And then we also want, you know, the difficulty sometimes is to transfer information. So we need a sustainable system to share the best practices and keep improving our SOPs within the university and outside. So at the moment, what we've settled on is internally, Lydia and her team have a Teams site where we can share documents and good practices. We have also a Dropbox and Google Docs, which those can be externally facing. So that's quite helpful that way. We can modify them at any time and they are externally facing. Lydia and her team have set a Twitter account, but I think she said they are not doing much for it now. But at the moment, all those are information. We don't have anything which is searchable, quick tips and so on. So I think we need to keep on thinking of what's going to be the most useful way to disseminate the information, and people don't feel like they have to read 30 pages before we can get something. So it's really ongoing progress here to think what's going to be the best way to keep everybody on board. Lydia, you're next.
Thanks. Thanks, Maggie. So as Maggie mentioned, I started off doing a pilot just in our division when the project began, and this was primarily just to give me some time to figure out what I was going to do. but also to kind of think about, you know, what resources we needed and to test the ones that we created. Obviously, you know, when you're looking at communicating with lots of people, there's various platforms these days, and we needed to decide on which ones to use, you know, the Twitter, Yammer, Facebook, everything. So that bought some time for that. So as you mentioned, originally we recruited a team of 13 within just one division, which I think is actually quite good. Our division is quite small, and it's clear that quite a lot of people are really, really into this, which is great. And now we've tried to start expanding. I've not done a huge amount on this. I've had a recruitment flyer sent out. We were at 28. Which I'm really pleased about, but obviously I want a lot more people to get involved. So some of the kind of things that we've been started to doing and what we're asking members to do once they join is to help identify more sustainable products and suppliers. Many of our team have already been doing this within their own labs for years, so they can just come in and say, oh, actually we're using this and we think it's better than what you're using because, and that kind of thing. And actually, because of COVID, we've had to trial a lot of new products lately. So even in our lab, for example, we've found some new things that we'll probably switch to, and they're actually better than what we were using before because we've been forced to do it. Also, we've done some piloting of new products. So our lab has tried out glass spreaders, for example, instead of plastic ones. We don't alcohol these near a flame. I'm really against that, and I suspect health and safety are as well. But we just bought a set that were quite cheap. We put them into Virkon when we're done, and then they just go in the autoclave after rinsing, and we've just got a little cycle in our lab. That's working really well. Some things haven't gone so well. Glass weighing boats went very badly. They're rubbish, unfortunately, but we found a way around that. We wash them now instead, and that works. So that, I guess, is under decontamination for reuse. You know, a lot of the things in the lab, you know, if it's toxic, obviously we won't reuse the weighing boat if it's really foamy, but our weighing boats that we actually get from stores are actually quite hydrophobic. You can rinse them really easily. They're great. I've not bought weighing boats for a very long time now, and I've not used a new weighing boat for also a very long time. The other thing was to generate resources, and as Maggie mentioned, we've got teams, so we've got like a tips file in this now, and I've changed the format a little bit since it started, and essentially this is just a PowerPoint because everybody can access that. I've got a table on the first slide so you can type in your own tips, and then the idea is that some of the people on the team that want to do a bit more work on this convert them then into sort of pictures like you can see here under newsletter articles, to go into various communications and share plastic reduction tips. Also a Twitter. So the reason we've not started using Twitter yet is just because I think it's better to wait until we've got a few, more recruits, and then we can get that out soon, hopefully. Another thing that we're really asking to do, and I think this comes to Maggie's point about dissemination, is to get our members to talk about 6R with other lab members. So I think historically, the lab that I'm in has recycled for a long time and been really, really good at it. And that was just because we used to have a guy in the lab that used to tell everybody off for not recycling. And then I started doing it after he left, and it's just spread and gone on like that. So, these little things, you grab something out the bin, I'd be like, why is this in this bin? It's recyclable. And it really works. But also, if people can spend a little bit of time maybe in a lab meeting just talking about it, I think that's a really good way of encouraging people to do it as well. And also there's a lot of confusion, I think, in our building about what plastics can actually be recycled. We get a lot of different types of packaging, and actually quite a lot of them are recyclable. Some of our plastic bottles are. There's variation between universities because of waste suppliers and things like that. So it is pretty much everybody on the team's been like, I don't know what I'm doing with this. So the idea then is to educate people so that they know, so that other people in their lab can come up and like, oh, can I recycle this? And then they know. And so it's to maximize that, really. Aside from that, I've also been working with our waste manager, Simon, and health and safety, and there's quite a big group of us now trying to get this sorted out, to try and maximise our recycling beyond packaging and into other lab items. It's obviously tricky because of biological contamination. There is another university that's allowed to do this, and so we're working towards that. So hopefully that'll get done. But in the meantime, again, I've focused on more packaging items that we didn't know we could recycle, making sure we're clear about what we can do. If anyone's not got additional bins, I've been putting them into people's labs. So in Smith, we've got bins on our corridors that you can just put your thin plastics into, but you've got to come out of the lab and put it in. And actually, by putting a bin in our tissue culture room, all the stripette packets are going in because it's just there. It's easy. You sat there, you just peel it off, stick it in the bin, and it's done. So that's really made a big difference. And I did it to lab next door, and they said it's made a massive difference to them. One of the postdocs said we've got no plastic in our bin anymore, which is great. So it's just something simple can have a really big effect. As I mentioned, newsletter articles. So we've got our postdoc rep does a really nice divisional newsletter, and I've been posting like these little tips in there and recruitment things, and we've now got a spot in another divisional newsletter, and obviously that's something I'm looking to expand, get into as many as possible, and just giving talks. For example, I gave one. We have like a seminar series in our division, and I just tagged on to the end of someone's talk and gave a quick talk about 6R. I also talked to the postdoc reps, which was really useful. I got a lot of contacts from that, not just people wanting to join, but also from divisional operations managers who were quite keen to suggest ways I could disseminate information, but also offered to send it out as well. And that's been happening since, which is great. So yeah, that's been really useful. I think that's everything I wanted to say. Thanks, Maggie.
Fantastic progress in a short amount of time. It's just a year. It's a year ago, isn't it? We started talking with each other, so that's fantastic. Right, I think the last slide is just some thanks. So you've seen some of the free staff involved here. There was loads of more staff, especially our technical teams. I know certainly in the practical labs are very, very switched on. We also have had quite a lot of students helping. Those two students have helped with all the logos, and Natalie and Ria helped developing the campus protocol and the home 6R protocol. So that's it. That's the presentation, Sammy.
I think it's my turn now.
Thank you very much, Maggie.
Is it me?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay, wicked. I will also say, as well as Sammy, I am also full of a cold, so I'm sorry. I will probably have to sniffle and blow my nose and cough a few times, so excuse that. But yeah, I've been asked to talk today on a completely unscience basis, so that was all very interesting for me. So I co-run an organisation called Plastic Shed, where we upcycle plastic that's totally unrecyclable by the council. So I'm just going to talk you guys through it and how we do it and how we work with it and the kind of things we make. So I'll just get my presentation up, share screen, if this works. Can I do it like this? Does this work? Oh, can we all see that?
We can, I think.
Amazing. Okay. Excuse all my tabs. Okay, so I, along with Camilla and a girl called Rachel, but she is unfortunately leaving soon, but so me and Camilla, we run Plastic Shed. So how do I do it? Oh, I forgot I added that. Let's learn about Plastic Shed. So something that we like to add into all our slides as a general thing, because we found it's actually really like a confusing thing for a lot of people, is that this triangular symbol is on every piece of plastic you will buy. It does not mean it's recyclable. We found a lot of people say, oh, it's got the symbol on, so I pop it in the recycling bin, and that's actually not the case. It's just identifying what type of plastic it is. So yeah, so it'll have a number within it, and so you need to check, because every area is completely different. You need to check with that if that item is then recyclable. Don't just chuck it in your recycling bin if that's the case. So there are actually 6 main types of plastic. There is another 7 as well, but that is actually just like an other, so everything else. So these are your main 6 that you will see. Why is it not working? Skipped a few. Another thing we always say is, so type 1 is usually your plastic bottles. They are recyclable in most areas. We recognise a lot of our knowledge comes from Greater Manchester, but so plastic bottles are recyclable. So a lot of people still buy plastic bottles, or we hear people say, oh, we still buy our plastic bottles because they can be recycled. And it's like, yeah, that's good, but actually they're usually recycled once, made into like children's toys, gardening furniture, or the most common one is your fruit packaging, you know, punnet containers. And actually once they're recycled once, they can't be re-recycled, so they're chucked straight in the bin. So don't think just because something can be recycled that it's got a life for the rest of its life. Actually, once you recycle plastic once, some of it tends to be unrecyclable. So if you can, just avoid it altogether. Obviously, I know that's not the case for everyone. But this is being really slow. There we go. So these are the 3 types that Plastic Shed currently collects. So type 2, type 3, type 4. Type 2 is usually your bottle lids. We do understand that bottle lids sometimes come in type 3 and 5. We do accept them as well, but as an overall rule, we just say we accept type 2, otherwise we end up with lots of different ones. So anything that's like your milk bottle lids, your like drink bottle lids, your like almond milk carton type lids, we accept all of those. Type 3, which is like your vinyl banners, which day-to-day people don't tend to have, but for big organisations. We just had a big donation off Manchester International Festival, so all the ones that are above the city, and we accept, because PVC is actually one of the most toxic plastics that exist, and they can't be recycled. They are burned usually, and the burning releases a whole load of chemicals. They're really bad, and the thing with vinyl banners is they tend to be for an event, so once the event's come and gone, you can't reuse them. Whereas actually the material itself is amazing, and it can be, it can be cut up, it can be sewn. I'll explain all this later, so no spoilers, but it's a really good material. And then type 4, which is your stretchy plastic, so things like your plastic bag, your toilet roll covers, anything like that, anything that you can hold between 2 hands and pull and it stretches apart, that's your type 4. So that's all the types that we collect. Oh, and I've already explained all this. Type 2, bottle lids. Keep skipping slides. Type 3, vinyl banners. Type 4, plastic bags. So before we use any of them with us, we have to sort them, clean them, and get them ready. Oh, clean them, sort them, get them ready. Okay, so let's get recycling. So I'll explain now sort of like the type, how we recycle them. Oh my gosh, my thing is being a right pain. There we go. So type 2, so we haven't made that unfortunately, but there's an amazing organisation called Precious Plastic who have made that. And that is the type of thing that with this bottle lid, you can shred them down and you can make things like this, and they make beautiful creations. It's such an amazing plastic, and actually it's so easily recycled. It's just, there's no big business in collecting all the bottle tops, cleaning them, going through them, doing that whole thing like big recycling companies. There's no point for them. But actually, so they're burned or thrown into landfill, and they're such an amazing plastic. They can produce such beautiful things. So Precious Plastic, if you are interested in anything like this, Precious Plastic is an amazing thing online. They give out all their information for free, how to recycle things. They have a map on there where you can pin yourself if you're interested in getting involved in anything like this. They give out free information of how to build their machines. They're great. Go and look at them if you're interested. So we have, oh my gosh, I keep skipping. So the way we start with our plastic is, all our plastic is donated by the public, especially our bottle tops. So everything we get is completely community based. So everyone collects them, they cleans them, and they drop them off for us. We get some places that do a hub for us. So we have some churches and some shops who everyone gives them straight to them. We have some families who collect from their wider neighbours and families. We get some people who individually just collect and drop them off. It's really good, because then we found the community really get to see as well, like they come in and they go, I'm dropping this off, like what have you made recently? And we show them what we're making out of their own plastic waste, which they love. So our shredder is actually built by Heaton's Men Sheds, which has been great. They said it kept them sane during lockdown with the project, but they have also refused to ever make one ever again because it was the biggest pain they ever said they had to do. So fair enough. So you put the lids in the machine and they come out sort of like flakes. Then we also have our very little mini sheet press donated by CR Clark. And as you can see, that's just one of the first examples we made. We can make small tiles out of them and also bigger sheets. You can also get lots of different molds made, and these are just the starting off ones that we have. So this type of plastic, actually, when you put it into one of these machines, it melts down into sort of like a hot liquid. So it can really fill any shape, any mold you can think of, anything you can think of and design, it can be made into it. And as you can see, these are just some examples of the type of things that can actually be made. Oh my gosh, my cold is making me heat up. So yeah, so it can literally, it's a really strong material, it's very sturdy, and it's stunning, as you can see, and they're all individual. The colors, when you melt them and reform them, you don't lose any of the colors. So they really are beautiful, and it makes me so mad because it's such a waste of plastic. And we always say at Plastic Shed, like, plastic isn't actually the problem. Plastic is an amazing material. It's just the way we use it, and we don't reuse it, and they're thrown away and they're polluting our environment. That's the problem. So type 3, I was explaining with the vinyl banners. yeah, so these are the types of things. So you can see that we've cut into them, we've reformed them. These are all starting off products where we've just got some funding, which is really fun, to make a little bag line. So we're gonna design and create some bags as well out of them. You can see that they can be sewn into, cut into. It's waterproof, it's strong, the colors all stay. Obviously all these are quite plain colors at the minute, but we have some beautiful Manchester International Festival colored ones as well. So it's just such an amazing material, and you can make clothing out of it, you can make bags out of it, anything you can think of really. And then we have type 4, which is just stretchy. So we reuse this by ironing. It's one of the techniques we use. So you can take it, sandwich it in between two pieces of greaseproof paper, iron it, and actually it creates, once you do all this layering technique, so it's, you've got to make sure you do it like one layer at a time, one layer, and you can design it any way you want. Sorry. You can design any way you want. You can make all sorts of different products. So you end up making almost like a sheet of this kind of like plasticky leather material. And as you can see, people can do it in blobs of colors. Some people cut out words so that their sheets have like phrases or words on them. And you can see on the next slide, these are the types of things so far we've made. So the one far right is actually from a huge poster that was made. So a lot of the time, schools that we go into, they love that because the kids can design their own posters that are, you know, usually eco-based, and then we can go into the schools and recreate those posters that they've drawn out of 100% recycled plastic, which is always really fun. So it's a really great technique, and it just means none of it goes to waste. The words can be used, the colors can be used, you can create animals out of it. That's great. There we go. So as I was saying, we run workshops. So you can see we take all these materials and all these ideas, and we go and we run workshops with them, with the entire community. So it can be schools, it can be private groups. Sometimes we run free ones just within the community, out of our space in Stockport. There's lots of different workshops that we do. I'm going to cough again. And just to give you a brief thing, because I think there's so much I could talk about with Plastic Shed. We do so many different things. It's kind of hard to do it. So this is a brief thing of kind of the main things we've been up to in the past sort of 6 months. We did a art installation for Manchester International Festival. So we made all these, they asked us to make these huge banners out of recycled vinyl that had key words and key phrases that were then carried around to inspire conversation. So this is entirely made out of just old vinyl banners, and then obviously they then donated to us their vinyl banners, which was really good. We were recently publicised in the BBC News, which was very exciting. My face was on the BBC home news page, which was terrifying, but good. And you can see that's just one of the things that we make. We have like a jewelry line that's going to be coming out soon. We also run workshops where people can come and make their own sheets and design with their own colours, design their own jewelry and products, and they can make them themselves as well out of our sheets. We've just finished a course with Manchester Metropolitan University. We had 6 weeks of all the different styles of plastic that we use, the different ways we use them. And they all came in for a full day, and it meant they got to experiment with them in any way they wanted. It was completely open, because we really feel at Plastic Shed like everyone's brain is completely unique. And actually we learn just as much from students and people who come into our workshops as they learn from us, which is really great. We also just did an art installation piece for Lumiere Art Festival. So these were made, we were asked to make with the community down in Durham, these sheets out of our ironing technique, out of plastic. And everyone got to, sorry, my throat's getting dry now. Everyone got to design their own sheets. So we had some people make huge smiley sunflowers, some people wrote notes to us. There's lots of different ideas, and then we used them to make petals and these giant flowers that were then lit up and hung. I think there was about 6 rows of them as you walk down this alleyway. Well, it's not an alleyway, it was a thin road. And then so recently, just if anyone is interested in getting involved and learning a bit more about us, we've just got some funding from Recycle for Greater Manchester, and with that funding we're doing 16 free workshops. I'm gonna cough. No, I'm not. 16 free workshops from November to April. We've already done a few. We've got one coming up this Saturday, actually 2 coming up this Saturday. One will be, if anyone's interested in volunteering, they can come and learn more about how they can volunteer, tell us how they wish to volunteer. And then the afternoon we'll be making Christmas decorations out of recycled vinyl banners. So if anyone's interested in learning more about them or keeping an eye on any future workshops that we do, these are completely free to the public, Keep an eye on our social medias, as you can see, Saturday. So that's joining the team if anyone is interested in volunteering or knows someone who might be. And then the afternoon, you don't have to come to that if you want to just come to the afternoon one, where we'll be just doing some fun Christmas decorations as well. So this is all, have I got anything on this? Yes, this is our social media. If anyone is interested in just keeping an eye on us, seeing if we do anything that you're interested in, and then you can come down. Stockport is a very easy trip from Manchester, 10 minutes on the train, very easy. And yeah, some of them are free. We also, in our space, just if there is any creatives who are watching, in our space, it's totally free for creatives or anyone who's interested in running any kind of workshop to come and use our space as well in their own way, just for students or adults or anyone who might be interested in that. So I thought I would add in some easy swaps for students and adults to lower your plastic footprint. For people who are interested in this, you probably already know all these, but you never know. I've done them anyway. So some of the ones that are well known: toothbrushes, big plastic toothbrush. You can get bamboo toothbrushes. The only thing I would say with them is you get a lot of them wrapped in plastic, which is kind of against the point, but you can get a lot, especially online or through smaller eco shops, which is always the best. They come either individually or wrapped in a paper or cardboard. Please avoid buying them if they're wrapped in plastic, because it's just a bit pointless. This thing. Then the next one is deodorant. A lot of deodorants come in like aerosols, which aren't good for the environment, or a lot of them also come in plastics. You can get, I'm not sponsoring Wild particularly, that they were just, I know they're very good and it's what I use. There's so many different ones that are completely plastic free and really good. Another one is your razor. You can get a metal razor where you just unscrew the head and then you just replace the razor itself. So you don't need a whole new razor every time they run out. Again, that's just a random brand that I found. Replace your cling film with beeswax wraps. They're always amazing. You can get them in all different sizes. Then once you've, wrapped something in it, take it off, give it a wash with some soapy water, leave it to dry, ready to go again. A classic one again, bottles. If you can avoid buying plastic bottles, that's amazing, because again, like I was saying, they are recyclable, but only once, and then they're again thrown in the furnace. So if you can get a metal or a glass one, that's even better. And one of the main ones actually, which a lot of people, it annoys me because a lot of people, no, this isn't why it annoys me. It annoys me because supermarkets make it hard for people to realise, not because people don't realise. Getting your plastic free veg. So I remember someone saying, oh, it's more expensive, and actually it's not. A lot of it's the way it's advertised. Like I went into Sainsbury's and it was like, courgettes were like £2. So they had £2 written on the courgettes that were completely plastic free, and then £1.50 on a packet of 2. But if you actually look at the weight wise on it, if you say like per weight, it's this much, it's cheaper a lot of the time to buy them plastic free. You pick up 2 courgettes and it ends up being, £1.20 or however much. But the way they're advertised, they do make them look more expensive. But a lot of the time that isn't the case. Excuse me. Period products, they're a really big one for plastic. You can get reusable period pads, you can get moon cup, you can get reusable period underwear. They're all really great, all really sustainable. There's loads of small companies who make them all around, obviously, the world, preferably try and buy England, just all local to you. But yeah, that is, they usually, period pads are made of plastic, they're wrapped in plastic. Tampons, they tend to be wrapped in plastic. There's a whole issue. Obviously, I understand that's not, a lot of people are comfortable with that, or a lot of people can't use that for certain reasons, and that's absolutely fine. We all have to do what's best and capable of ourselves, but that's a really good swap to do. Clothing pegs, simply just changing it to metal and wood from plastic. They do tend to fall apart a little bit easier, I find, but maybe not if you don't buy the really cheap ones that I buy. They might last a bit longer. And then your clothing. So actually, obviously, fast fashion is a huge problem for the environment as an overall thing. So buying secondhand is always an amazing step. But a lot of it is actually the material you buy your clothing in. If it's acrylic, it's actually a type of plastic. And not just acrylic, there's lots of different plastic-based materials. But if you can try and swap to buy natural, organic, cottons and like hemps and things like that, that's much better. if you can't do that, if the things you've got, you know, it's always better just to keep what you already own than to, you know, buy fresh. But something like the guppy bag, that's something that, because when you wash your clothes that are made of plastic fibers, it releases microplastics into your like water stream, you know what I mean? So a guppy bag, actually you put everything in there and it collects all of the plastic fibers that come out, so it stops it getting into the system. Oh, and that was my last one. So yeah, so I'm Caitlin. I don't think I introduced myself at the beginning. My email's there if anyone has any questions. I also run our social media, so if you do have any questions, give us a follow on there and just ask away. We're all ears. So yeah, that's just a little bit about Plastic Shed. I hope that made sense. In between my coughs. How do I get out of this now?
Thank you very much. I want to apologise as well. I got my notes wrong. That was Caitlin from Plastic Shed.
Yeah, at
Thank
the
you very
beginning I
much,
was like,
Caitlin.
am I supposed to be in this one? I was like, oh no.
And yeah, and that was